Hello, guys. I hope you guys are having a good Sunday. So, my name is David KOBIA. I am the Director of Technology at a company called Ushahidi that is based out of Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about crowdsourcing with Ushahidi. Some people might not be familiar with crowdsourcing. So just to start, when people talk about crowds, usually crowds just seem insane and chaotic, right? Much like these crazy people who are running the bull in Spain. They seem crazy, right? This is a crowd. And then sometimes, a crowd is also, a cool flash mob in the Hong Kong airport. This was very cool, by the way. And this was very well organized. But most of the time, people don't really take crowds very seriously. In fact, a cynical streak in society looks at all forms of amateur participation as either naive or stupid. There's a very interesting project in the United States that was launched by the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. It was called the Network Challenge. And what these guys did, this is a military wing of the US government. They said they hoisted 10 balloons all over the country. And they posed a challenge. They said, if anyone can figure out where these 10 balloons are, we will give them $50,000, right? And just based on the complexity of this problem, they actually said it was impossible to predict where these 10 balloons were. But as it turns out, some students at MIT solved this problem in 9 hours. So how did they do this? They prepared before the launch of the event. And what they did was they reached out to people via the internet, social media, and said, we promise to pay you $2,000 if you can figure out where the balloon is. So they got thousands of people involved in this effort. And they even went as far as rewarding people who reported false information, because obviously some people, incentivized to cheat, want this 2,000. So you're paid a little extra, and they solved this problem in 9 hours. This is the essence of crowdsourcing. I think you guys should look this book up by James Surowiecki. I think it explains crowdsourcing a little better. It's a great book, The Wisdom of Crowds. So what is Ushahidi? Ushahidi is a company that builds free and open source software for information collection, visualization, and interactive mapping. We basically build tools that let people tell their stories with the tools that they have, which most of the time, in a lot of countries we work in, the tools that most people have is mobile phones. Ushahidi, which means testimony or witness in Swahili, is something we came up with a little over 5 years ago. This was after a crisis in Kenya. An election went south, and what the government did was shut down TV, news, radio, and they said, we'll shut down all the media until we can solve this problem, which was not the way to go, because what happened was reports of violence, police brutality, looting, property destruction, all this stuff started popping up all over the internet. Some of us were bloggers back then, and we started to see these reports, so we said, just a group of us on a weekend, let's build something simple that people can send text messages in to report these incidents that are happening, right? And that was the genesis of Ushahidi. So what Ushahidi is, this is a platform that allows people to aggregate all these disparate forms of media, mostly from the internet, social media, all these other websites, RSS feeds, text messages, pull all this into one platform, map it, and then output, maps and other feeds. And maybe it's better if I illustrate what, if I can get this to work. So just to give a few examples of where Ushahidi has been used. Ushahidi has been used in election monitoring in India. Ushahidi has been used in Kenya to monitor different elections. Ushahidi has been used for citizen journalism. Harassmap was very interesting. This monitored sexual violence against women in Egypt. It was a very sensitive deployment of Ushahidi. The oil spill crisis map, this was in the Gulf of Mexico. And this was just documenting the ecological impact of the oil spill and how it affected communities around the Gulf after the oil spilled. Ushahidi has been particularly useful in disaster and crisis response. Haiti, I'm sure most of you remember this. This was a really big event that affected most people around the world. I think disaster and crisis in particular drive crowds to participate in crowdsourcing. So you see a huge outpouring of information and help during big crises around the world. In fact, we like to say that tools like Ushahidi give the ordinary person a digital front seat to events happening around the world, right? Ushahidi has also been used for social revolutions, the Arab Spring in Egypt. We've been in Libya, in Syria, and all the countries in between, as well as the Occupy movement in the United States. And then in the last few years, the mainstream media has become particularly interested in crowdsourcing because obviously it changes the way the story is told, right? Now everyone is in and part of everyone is a part of the story now. So mainstream media is feeling a little left behind, so they're trying to catch up by looking at crowdsourcing tools like Ushahidi. We also build a bunch of mobile applications, iPhone, Android, and everything else in between. So how does this actually work? So we're trying to gather as much data from the crowd, right? And then spending a huge amount of time, or as quickly as possible, using the crowd to verify this information that is coming in, and then pushing it on to first responders and policymakers and people who can actually react to this information. Crowdsourcing is complicated. And actually, as you can see, this diagram, this workflow is from Kenya and the election, and what it took to crowdsource an election in Kenya. As you can see, you have a whole media monitoring team. You have an SMS team. You have people who spend time looking at the individual bits of data and looking for locations, geotagging this data. And then you have people doing analytics, verification, and technology, the technology component. So crowdsourcing is work. So for instance, with the election in Kenya, there were over 5,000 messages received from regular citizens. 5,000 reports created. Over 4,000 reports were approved, meaning these are reports that we deemed to be truthful in a sense. 2,700 of them were actually verified. So as you can see, this is a big effort. Crowdsourcing is work. It takes organizing a crowd of people and making it happen. The thing is, a lot of times it's not that difficult around specific events. So as much as we concentrate on building software, we like to think of our software as 10% of the solution.